ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930 present The Drive.
Elmore deep, left side three, good! From 30 feet, John Elmore!
The Drive with Paul Swann.
Welcome in. It is another edition of The Drive, the Wednesday, April 18th edition to be exact here on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. Also, we are live on TuneIn Radio. You can also catch us delayed on Apple Podcasts. You can also download the podcast on Stitcher Radio. You can get the podcast as well on TuneIn. Of course, we are broadcasting to you at WRVC.com. We got a lot to get into today. Coming up on the program, we're going to hear from Marshall track assistant coach Caleb Bowen is joining us on the program. He is going to share his experience in the Boston Marathon. Also, we're going to hear from Marshall offensive line coach Greg Adkins joining us on the program for an update on spring football. We'll take time for your phone calls at 877-420-TALK, 877-420-8255. Let's get you caught up on the news of the day. The first thing we want to talk about is breaking news. We got the confirmation from verbalcommits.com that Phil Bledsoe is going to be transferring from the Marshall program. So this is coming from a report from verbalcommits.com. He's the second player now to leave the Thundering Herd. Now, Bledsoe only appeared in 19 games. He was 19 games of action, 36 total, and he came off the bench. He averaged about 8.4 minutes playing time. His average on the score chart was 3.1 points and 1.7 rebounds. He's only amassed 99 points 2 seasons, 97 rebounds total, 35 game appearances, 7.8 minutes. I don't know if he just feels like the writing is on the wall. He's not going to get the opportunity that he's looking for. Better situation for him. I do wish him well in wherever he goes and whatever he decides to do with his basketball career. But I don't think that's going to be a hard person to replace, as I'm sure Marshall already has some players in mind. Of course, the Herald-Dispatch reporting that there could be another signing. Tavion Kinsey could be announcing his decision to play for Marshall, and that's expected to happen after 6 today, I believe, when we go off the air. So that's where Thundering Herd's at right now. We'll update that, of course. Now, earlier action today, the Pirates beat the Rockies, game you heard right here on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. They did it in outstanding fashion, 10-2. So Pirates continue doing what they're doing this season, and that's just winning a lot of ball games. Cincinnati Reds are in action today as well. I don't have a final on that one yet, but they're doing what they do best right now, and that's losing. Also, a little closer to home, Marshall, Kerry Parks finishing tied for 11th in the Conference USA Golf Championship. Now, unfortunately, the Thundering Herd did not finish as high. As far as the team standings were concerned, they were looking at maybe a 5th place finish. Did not get to that standard. Instead, the best thing you can do is celebrate where Kerry Parks finished, tied 11th for Conference USA's Golf Championship. Now, the Thundering Herd also make it official today that they have added Princess Clemens to the women's team, so that's official today. Now, last night was a busy night in the National Hockey League and the NBA. The Capitals have to go to double overtime to beat the Columbus Blue Jackets 3-2. Blue Jackets still lead that series 2-1. The Winnipeg Jets beat the Minnesota Wild 2-0. Winnipeg now leads that series 3-1. And it was only a 1-goal game. Doesn't matter. The Golden Knights, the expansion team, continues to do crazy things. They have now won their first ever playoff series, and they have swept their first ever playoff series as well, beating the Los Angeles Kings and winning that 4-0. That's amazing. The Golden Knights are a co-favorite to win the Stanley Cup right there next to the Nashville Predators. I like this Golden Knights team. I'm rooting for them, so I'm pulling for them. Now on the ice tonight, you've got the bitter, heated rivalry between Pittsburgh and Philadelphia Also, Tampa Bay and New Jersey tonight. Nashville's taking on Colorado, and Anaheim is taking on San Jose. NBA action last night. Toronto with the win over Washington, 130-119. So Toronto now leading that series 2-0. Boston also beat Milwaukee, 120-106. Boston leads that series 2-0. And New Orleans gets the win over Portland, 111-102, leading that series 2-0. Tonight, Indiana faces Cleveland. We'll have that game for you starting at 6:30 right here on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. You also have Utah taking on Oklahoma City, and Minnesota is taking on Houston tonight, pulling for Houston, of course, in that one. So coming up tonight on the program, we're going to talk some football with you. We're going to get a little feel for what's happening with the Thundering Herd on the spring football side of things with Greg Adkins. He's going to join us a little bit later on. And a few minutes from now, we're going to talk to Caleb Bowen. He's going to join us, share his experience in the Boston Marathon. So we're looking forward to having those two on and as well getting your phone calls in, and we'll do that in a few minutes. We'll start, of course, with Caleb when we come back from break, and then later on we'll hear from Greg Adkins, and then after that, your phone calls on the program. This is The Drive on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
Now, back to The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
Welcome back. It is the Wednesday edition of The Drive here on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. I'm your host, Paul Swann. Still to come, we're going to hear from Marshall offensive line coach Greg Adkins, get us an update on spring football. But let's turn our attention now to running. The Boston Marathon. That is something that most of us will never do, but Marshall track coach, assistant coach Caleb Bowen has done it, and he joins us on the program now to basically tell us about all the things that happen in the marathon that most of us will never get to experience. How are you doing, Caleb?
I'm doing good. How about you, man?
Good. Thanks for joining us today. I was excited to find out you were running this because that's something that a lot of people maybe want to do, but not everybody's equipped or built to do it, and a lot of people maybe just don't think they can do it. So it's an experience every year, I'm sure.
Yeah, oh, for sure. Like, each year has a different, challenge with weather or just the course or, everything. It's just a great experience in general.
What made you decide you wanted to run the Boston Marathon? Was it something from your childhood or just like a goal, bucket list item? What was it?
Well, back when I was running for Marshall for the cross-country team, I went and watched my dad run. I think it was back in 2014. And that was the year after the Boston bombing. And watching him run just invoked so many emotions in me that I was like, man, I have to do this eventually, And after I qualified that first year back in 2016, I was hooked from then on out. And it's just, I don't know, there's just something about it that's really special. And especially when you're running down Boylston Street close to the finish line, you have thousands of people cheering for you. And I don't know, it's just something special about it.
How'd you do as far as what you set for yourself as a goal? And did you realize your own goals and expectations in running this year?
Well, this year I really didn't. I didn't train well for it. I won't lie. Last year I had a lot better time. I ran 2:42 last year and was 250th. This year, I kind of went into it knowing that I wasn't really as in good shape. I won't lie, I just got a little too busy with just coaching the track team and doing my doctorate work and pretty much everything else. I kind of put running for myself on the back burner. So I didn't really have high expectations, but I really thought I'd run close to 245 to 250. And halfway through, I found out that wasn't going to happen. It was just one of those days where I was really cold, it was really windy, and I knew I wasn't feeling good, so I just tried to, have the best experience that I could and get to the finish line.
You get any business from your team?
Was it?
Did you get any business? Anybody rib you a little bit on your performance from the team, just giving you the business?
Yeah, a little bit. They were all making good jokes because I got beat by so many people that they were just like, man, you must have really hit the wall hard there at mile 15. I was like, well, yeah, I did. But no, it's been good. It's been good. I run with them all the time, and that's part of our training is running together. So I get to, whenever they run not so great, or whenever I'm running with them and they're feeling rough, I always pour it on them, and they do the same to me. So we kind of have that nice dynamic on our team.
Is the marathon more of a personal experience for runners? There's so many participating. I'm sure a lot of people go in with the aspiration of winning, but that's not really possible for the majority. So, what is it that brings people back every year to the marathon is something they want to do?
I think everybody has a goal of being better than they were the year before or the last time they ran, and that's something that even if you can't win the race, you can still be better than you were, and just that fact, draws people in and gets them hooked. Because, like you said, not everybody can win, but everybody can run faster. So, you put a little bit more hard work into it, and you have a smarter race plan, and just things just go up from there. Now for Boston, I feel like it's just such a great goal to get, or a great thing to get in, since you have to qualify for it. So a lot of people's goals are just to qualify, and then other people have different goals of running a certain time or a certain place. So yeah, I would just say that everybody has their own goals set, and that's something that you don't have to have the goal to win. You just have to have really.
Have you found since the tragedy of the bombing that the marathons may be taking on even a greater importance? More people are participating. Have you found that in your experience?
Oh, for sure, definitely. And I think the people of Boston have really they're already all about the marathon, but since then, they treated us so well, and we felt like rock stars in a sense. The people of Boston hold that marathon with such high regard. And ever since the bombing, it really brought the people of Boston together. Just like all the other sports in Boston do, like the Celtics and the Bruins and the Patriots. The Boston Marathon is just one of those sporting events that really, invokes the emotions, and it's almost like a celebratory to celebrate the people of Boston. So yeah, I would definitely say so.
Joining us on the program from Marshall track assistant coach Caleb Bowen joins us. He was at the Boston Marathon, and he's not a first-timer, so he's done this now a couple of times. Take us through just the Boston Marathon, from start to finish. What was the experience like? What can you share from the first mile, the 10th mile, the 15th mile? What can you share as far as maybe to give people a better idea of what the marathon's all about?
Okay, so it starts with early in the morning. You have to wake up and you have to get a shuttle to the start of the race, which is in Hopkinton, Massachusetts, which is 26 miles away from Boston. And then once you get there, you have to wait around for 2 hours, and they have hot coffee, they have bagels, pretty much everything you would want. And then eventually they'll call your corral or your wave over, and that's where you start the race. And then once you start, I was in wave 1, corral 1, so I'm right behind the elite runners, which is a really cool experience too, seeing all of the people I look up to. And we start, and the start is on a downhill, and it goes downhill for pretty much the first 10K. So everybody's just sprinting forward. I'm trying to hold back actually, because I know that I went a little bit too fast last year, so I wanted to rein it in. But I still ran 5:50 for pretty much the first 10K of the race, 5:50 per mile. And then you go from Hopkinton to Ashland, which is a little small town. And then from there you go into several just small towns that have different traditions and different places where people cheer and all of that. This year, since it was so cold and rainy, it's 40 degrees with torrential downpours the whole time and a 25-mile-per-hour headwind. It really changed the dynamic of the race, where people were trying to just draft off each other. So instead of being all spread out, everybody was in a line. So really it's just like running in little groups, trying to, maybe run up ahead to another different group or stay in the group you're in. Let's see. Then about mile 12, almost halfway, there's this town called Wellesley, and there's an all-women's college there. So they have a kind of weird but fun tradition where they have a thing called the scream tunnel, which is where both sides of the road are just covered with these girls from the all-women's college, and they scream so loud that you can hear them from a mile away. And it's a really cool thing, but the weird tradition about it is they always kiss the runners as you're running by, if you want. So I made sure I got 3 of them, and that really lifted my spirits a little bit. And then from then on, it goes uphill through Newton, the town of Newton, which is a very course. And that's where the famous Heartbreak Hill is, mile 20. And for me, is around there where I really started to hurt bad. I started getting tunnel vision and was just in a really bad spot at that point. So I just knew I had to get up the hill. Once I got up the hill, I was fine. But going up the hill was really, really rough. And then it just got colder, and the rain got worse and worse. And then, once you get up to the top where Boston College is, it's really pretty flat from then on out. But I lost my legs at that point. I was just trying to get to the finish line. So at that point, you run off the people's everybody cheering for you. That's really the only thing that got me going. And then once you take the right on the take the left on Boylston Street, you're finished. So, for me, it was all about getting warm after the race because I was really cold, really wet, and fortunately, these two, I call them angels because I don't know who they were, but they wrapped me up in a blanket and they called an Uber for me to get back to the hotel, and then eventually I took a 20-minute shower, and that was pretty much my Boston experience right there.
You wear any herd gear? Have anything indicating that you're repping the herd?
Well, I did last year. I wore a Marshall hat. This year, I was actually part of a team called the Hagerstown Cumberland Valley Athletic Club. So I had to wear their jersey. If not, I would have worn a Marshall jersey. But no, I didn't wear any Marshall gear this year. I was going to wear my Buffalo socks, but I didn't want to get them too wet because those socks, when they get wet, are not very good. I would have had blisters. So I just wore running socks. But I definitely rocked the Marshall gear all the way, the day before, walking around Boston, and the day after. So I repped the herd.
Any go-hers from anybody? Anybody know what you were doing or wearing?
Actually, yeah. It was the day before, whenever we were at the expo, I had several people come up to me and say they had family that lived in Huntington, or they knew somebody that was in the plane crash. So it was a really cool experience just to hear all the stories from other people who, complete strangers, but they knew all about Marshall.
Caleb Bowen's joining us, Marshall's assistant track coach, and he's sharing his experience in the Boston Marathon. So, are you doing it again next year, or are you going to try to get back into it?
I would love to, yeah. I need to get probably a better qualifying time. Well, actually, my Marshall Marathon time will get in pretty easily, but I want to run faster than my PR, which is 2:36, and that's what I ran at the Marshall Marathon, not this past year, but the year before. But yeah, definitely, it's one of my goals to run the Boston Marathon with my dad, since he's the one that kind of got me started into running and started me into marathoning too. I'd love to share that experience with him. Have him run along with me.
Are you encouraging anyone on this team to maybe try to join you, or at least get them started?
Yeah, but we want them to finish out their careers at Marshall first, because marathoning is completely different from track racing and cross-country racing. It's just a lot more miles and a lot more, longer type workouts, whereas, for, everything in track's 6 miles and below. So you don't really, the dynamic's a little different. But yeah, there's one of our best girls, Holly Ann. She's really interested in getting into marathoning after she graduates. So, I'm definitely excited to see what she can do.
Joining us on the program, Marshall assistant coach for the track team, Caleb Bowen. He's sharing his experience in the Boston Marathon, and it sounds like you had a wonderful time. And did you get a chance to maybe get some recruiting in? You could probably write a couple receipts off. This was a recruiting visit, right?
I should have. Well, they do have a high school mile the day before the marathon. I should have passed out my business card there.
See, there you go. That's your goal next year. Pass out some business cards, run the marathon.
Definitely should. I didn't get there in time for the mile this year, but next year I'll definitely have to plan that.
Okay, you sport some herd gear as well. See, you'll do better with the herd gear. That's the takeaway I got from this today. Herd gear, you do better.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, for sure. Every time I wear the Marshall hat, I usually run pretty well. So.
Now, with this Boston Marathon experience, something you've taken care of now and want to continue to do, is this going to be your only big major marathon? Are you going to try to go out for anything else, or are you pretty content with what you got now?
Well, I think Boston will always be my favorite, but no, I'd like to try a different one. New York City Marathon is always a big one that I've wanted to do. Chicago as well. And it'd be really cool to go to like Ireland and do the Dublin Marathon. Just I'm free game for anything. I've even started doing some ultra races last summer. I did a 40-mile race called the Highland Sky, and that was a lot of fun. It was awful because 40 miles is a terribly long distance, but afterwards I was signed up again. I really wanted to do it, so we'll see. I'm kind of open for anything, but I think my goal right now is just to run that 40-mile race again this year and then try to run faster for the Marshall Marathon.
Caleb Bowen, our guest, Marshall's assistant track coach, running the Boston Marathon. So let's just go ahead and make this a yearly thing. You run the marathon, we'll have you back on next year, or at least sometime in between now and the marathon also.
Yeah, sounds good. I'd love to be on again.
Caleb, thanks for sharing your experience. Good luck with the track team, and, of course, let's hope that we can see you for many years to come in the Boston Marathon.
Sounds good. Thank you.
That's Caleb Bowen, Marshall's assistant track coach. We're going to take our next break, come back, and switch gears, talk a little football. Greg Adkins is joining us, Marshall's offensive line coach, when we continue on today's edition of The Drive right here on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
Don't worry. Paul Swann has the wheel on The Drive, ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
Welcome back to the Wednesday edition of The Drive on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. We'll take your phone calls later on at 877-420-TALK, 877-420-8255. But we want to turn our attention now to Marshall football. And joining us on the program, we want to welcome Marshall's offensive line coach, Greg Adkins. Coach, thanks for spending some time with us this afternoon.
I appreciate you having us on.
So we're a few days away from everything wrapping up, and where do you see this team now from when drill started to at this very moment? Yeah, how much improvement have you seen, or have you been pretty pleased with the way things are going?
Well, I'll speak only about the offensive line. Obviously a new voice in the room, a new way of doing things, a relatively new offense. I think things have progressed pretty well over the first 10 practices. It's
kind of nice, though. You've got a lot of veterans on this team, so you don't have really that leadership problem or issue. There's just getting everybody up to speed probably that's the biggest challenge right now.
Well, we've changed some things technically that we do up front, and I think that's the biggest thing. I think the big thing is for them to get to know who I am as a football coach and how I teach and what the progression will be, and obviously me to get to know them. What's their skill set? What do they do well? What don't they do well? How well do they learn? How well do they adapt? There's a lot of different things. There's a lot of moving parts when you get 5 guys to be on the same page and work together.
I'm sure there's also a lot of excitement, though, because not necessarily is anything set in stone. So if somebody's trying to improve their lot on this team, their position, this is definitely an opportunity for them.
Well, I think, anytime there's change, Sometimes it always gives hope, or sometimes there's a different set of eyes on a skill set of a player, or some people might think a strength of a player is one that is different than another coach. So I think it's been a very competitive spring so far, and we look forward to finishing this thing out with 3 or 4 more good practices in the spring game next Saturday.
Now, with only a few practices remaining, what are you trying to accomplish, at least in general terms, as far as wrapping up the spring practice, getting the most out of these few days that remain?
Really, for them not to look that there's just a few days left. More that tomorrow's another opportunity for us to get better. And what are you going to do today to get your mindset right and to be a better player than you were on Tuesday at practice? And that's the mindset that we try to bring, or I try to bring in the offensive line room, is that every day is an opportunity to get better, or you're going to get worse. And hopefully you take what you learn in the meeting room to the field, and you see progression each and every day. One of the things that I feel like this group has done is when there has been a mistake, it's been correctable, and you haven't seen a lot of those same mistakes that you see, practice after practice. So I commend those players upon doing that so far. 10 practices in, and not the whole offense in, and all those types of things, but I commend the players on that so far.
You found them, everyone's pretty eager, ready to go then, as far as, just more of a willingness to listen to the new voice in the room?
Well, yeah. If you're any kind of competitor, and hopefully that's the kind of kids you recruit at that position in the offensive line, they want to please. And that group has been willing to please so far. They've been willing to try new things. So it's so far so good.
Joining us on the program, Marshall's offensive line coach Greg Adkins. And I know you can speak more to your squad and your unit than the rest of the team, but as you, of course, keep an eye on the other units and as you are in practice, how do you feel overall about the offensive side of the ball? Maybe even a little bit on the defensive side, as far as how this team is gelling, or what's exciting you the most?
The way this team competes, in everything that we do, whether it's individual, whether it's group work, or whether it's teamwork, working together, being very competitive, not combative, and not a lot of jawing back and forth. This guy's going out there trying to get their job done, and that's what I liked about this team so far. Really, on the line of scrimmage, competing with Coach Price and Coach Brown's guys has been a joy. And there's nothing better than competing against good players that make you better, and you better bring your A game each day, or you're going to get yourself embarrassed.
Do you find that is the case sometimes with units that that they're not ready to come to work? I know Marshall, is a unique situation from other places, but is that a problem at times?
Well, sure. I think anytime you don't have competition for your job, I think there's sometimes the complacency can be set in. But I don't see that in this football team. I see a team that goes out and competes on a daily basis, and what that relates to is a good football team, a team that wants to do well and wants to please and wants to compete. And when they do right, you tell them, and when they don't do right, you tell them. And being honest with kids and is truthfully, most kids today want honesty. They just don't want to tell you they want the honesty. And you just got to be very blunt with kids and just tell them how it is. And that's the approach that certainly I've taken in the offensive line.
So from a general standpoint, just kind of get your thoughts on coming back to Marshall. It's been a few years since you've been on the field for the Thundering Herd in any capacity. So how's it been getting to come back to Marshall and be a part of this team once again?
It's been awesome. Certainly several things went into my decision in coming back here, but certainly when I got the phone call, I was greatly appreciated for them to think that I was capable of doing this job again. And, it was good. My parents live 40 miles up the road and cross lanes, and that was a big part of the reasons I came back. I mean, I'm a former player here. I've bled on these fields before and coached here, so it was a great opportunity. And obviously, getting back to a lot of people that I know and seen in town, and I go walking every day at lunch, and it's amazing how many people drive by and say, and I look and I kind of notice that person. So all that stuff's been great, but I'm here to do one job, and that's to be the best offensive line coach I can be.
Has it been fun being able to just reconnect with this program, being able to maybe share your knowledge of what the program was like when you were a player? There was a lot of high-caliber winning football at that time, and you can't necessarily teach that, or can you, as far as giving that kid an idea of, hey, this is what it feels like to be a champion. I mean, Marshall's won football, but you come from a special time of Marshall football.
Well, it's certainly you can talk about it, but I think you have to show them. Most kids today, you have to show them. Most kids, they understand about the history. I think this team understands about history of this program. I think Coach Holliday has done a fantastic job of instilling that into this program. That's important to me as an alumnus. That's important to me as a football coach here now. And I think you have to show them the way. I have to show them, and it's been done here before. I always say if it's been done here before, it can be done again. The programs that it's never been done at, those are the programs that, sometimes will usually struggle because it's never been done. No one's ever showed them the way. And certainly, hopefully I'll be able to bring that as we grow. To be honest with you, I've been more focused in on just this offensive line and trying to get it better on a daily basis than the overall picture of the program.
Joining us on the program, Marshall's offensive line coach Greg Adkins, as spring football is close to wrapping up. So what's next for you? I know the work doesn't end with the last practice. I'm sure you'll be as busy as ever, just with a different landscape now.
Oh, sure. Having exit meetings with our players, finishing up the spring semester academically, obviously recruiting. There's a lot of things. Got camps to get ready to get involved. We got our coaching clinic this Friday. So there's never really a dull moment in a football coach's life. Buying a new house, moving people, all those things. There's a lot that goes on in my short 6 weeks here. Yeah,
but I guess the good news is the transition's a little easier since this isn't your first rodeo here.
I guess the more times you've moved, the easier they get, I guess, is the deal. This is definitely not my first rodeo.
No, you've got a moving truck already on call, right? You just keep everything on standby.
Yeah, but I hope it doesn't happen very much more. I can tell you that.
It's just been a goal for you to get back here. I know the job is a great opportunity, but has this been maybe a personal goal for you to get to a point where you can get back here?
Well, certainly I can't say that it wasn't a thought in my mind over the years to have an opportunity. What I always try to do is do the best job I can at the place I'm at. And if that opportunity at some other place opens that I feel is a better opportunity or better opportunity for me or my family or whatever it might be, then certainly I want to take a look at it. I never take a job thinking that, I'm going there to get the next job. And I've never done that and never will do that. I know there's a lot of people that probably do that in this profession. But I've been there, done it. I've coached it at the highest level in the National Football League. I've coached in the SEC. I've coached in the ACC. I've coached in the Big East, the Big 12, 1AA football. So I've kind of been there, done that. And, all I'm worried about is what tomorrow is going to bring for this football team, and can I paint the picture for the offensive line, and hopefully as we get going, maybe for the offense, maybe more for this team, what can I bring to help us win and succeed? And that's what I'm here for.
Greg Adkins, our guest, Marshall's offensive line coach. Spring football back at it tomorrow and then Saturday, and then you got one more week to go, and then No days off for you. Back at it on every other aspect of being a coach, and it sounds like there's a lot to be excited for this upcoming season. I know, you can't just say, "Hey, we're going to go out and win it all," but it feels like this team is really a lot to be excited for.
Well, I think there's optimism across the country at this time of the year for your teams. This is, I don't know, my 9th or 10th job that I've had. What I do know is I like how this team competes. And if this team can stay healthy, and you got to have some breaks and all the things that go along with the game of football, I do know one thing: this team knows how to compete, and I like that part of this team right now.
Greg Adkins, our guest, Marshall's offensive line coach. Greg, thanks for spending some time with us. Looking forward to the upcoming season, and we hope to have you back on soon.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
That's Greg Adkins. A lot to be excited there for Marshall football. More spring practice taking place this week, Thursday and then Saturday, and then you got one more week after that. It all will culminate with the green-white game a week from Saturday. We're going to take our next break, come back, get some of your phone calls in, 877-420-TALK, 877-420-8255. This is The Drive on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
You're listening to The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
Welcome back to the Wednesday edition. I'm your host, Paul Swann, here on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. You can be a part of the program, 877-420-TALK, 877-420-8255. Reminder, we've got basketball action for you coming up tonight. Cavaliers are in action game 2 of their series with Indiana. We're going to have that for you. 6:30 is going to be our airtime. Tip-off set for a little bit after 7. You can catch it right here on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. You think the Cavaliers are in trouble? I've heard it bantied around a little bit. Must win? Really? Game 2, must win? I don't think so. It's only game 1 that they lost. They win tonight. It's a 1-1 series. I think we use that a little too much. A must-win or a linchpin game, whatever adjective you can come up with. I think we go down that road just a little bit too much sometime with the must-win. Now, when we get to Game 4 and it's a 3-0 series, that's a must-win. I think we can use that as must-win. And I don't know, can you say Game 3 if you're down 2? I mean, tonight, will it be a must-win for Philadelphia against the Penguins? Is that a must-win? Do we have that? I don't know. Is Colorado and Nashville, or can we throw a must-win for one of those teams yet in hockey? I don't know. Can we say that? Utah, Oklahoma City, is there a must-win coming out of any of those? I don't think we need to use the must-win just yet with Cleveland. But that's coming up tonight. You can listen to it again, 6:30 right here on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. That was pretty fun, talking a little Herd football today. And again, opportunity for you to see the Herd. If you are a season ticket holder, you're a Big Green member, you get an opportunity to go out, hang out, watch a little bit of practice. You can see that tomorrow, 3 to 6, and then on Saturday, if nothing's changed, 9 to noon. And then you got one more week of that. All culminates with the green-white game on Saturday next week. So that's it. After that, you're going to have to sit and ponder what this football team's going to look like. I'm a little bit more optimistic about this team this year than I was last year. I think that's fair to say. They definitely have convinced me that they've taken care of business. They've put the ship back in the right direction. Yeah, you're going to have ups and downs. I know this is cliche to the 9th degree, but I think when they were losing a couple years ago, that was kind of an aberration. I don't think that we're going to see that as something that's going to happen on a regular basis. If it does happen now and then, but pretty optimistic. So, hopefully we'll see you out there for the green-white game. And if not, we've got football coming up in several months from now. So we'll definitely have baseball to keep us busy and playoff hockey until then. And, of course, the NBA as well. What are you watching more of? What's got your interest? Are you kind of eyeballing the NBA a little bit more, or are you keeping an eye on the hockey side of things? Now, I'll be honest with you. NBA, I'm going to watch a little bit of the Cleveland Cavaliers. They're our team. We're going to keep an eye on them here. But other than that, if it wasn't for the D'Antoni connection, I probably wouldn't be interested in Houston. And I'm not interested in Oklahoma City, Utah at all. So I have two connections there. In the NHL tonight, I think the most interesting game is going to be Pittsburgh and Philadelphia just because it's a blood sport there. Maybe not so much in Tampa Bay, New Jersey. I get that. Nashville, Colorado, yeah, I can see some interest there. And then if you're a West Coast fan, you've got Anaheim, San Jose. Most of you probably are not. I am a little bit, but my time's going to be definitely between the Cavs, see if they can win their must-win game 2. Are we calling them vulnerable because they lost game 1? I heard that as well, that they're vulnerable right now. I don't know if they're quite vulnerable because they lost one game. Now, if they lose tonight, then I might entertain a little bit of that. Okay, there might be some problems here, but I'm not going to entertain that until game 2 is over. They're vulnerable. The same thing with Philadelphia coming back on Pittsburgh with that game where they just waxed them. I wasn't going to declare them back either. Oh, Philadelphia's back in this series. Well, no. That's why you play multiple games here, just to see who will rise to the top on this. I don't know. I think the good news is though is the ratings are up. People are watching a little bit more of this, keeping an eye on both. NBA obviously has got the better platform than the NHL does with the networks of NBC Sports, and I even saw people complaining a little bit about the Golf Channel, that hockey's on the Golf Channel. I don't know. I don't know if I would complain about that one too much because it could be worse. Your hockey could be on BN Sports. That's where your hockey could be. You could be a Marshall fan looking for a hockey game on BN. That means you ain't going to find it. You're looking for the Thundering Herd? Of course, not going to find it. It's going to be a hard time for you. And everything's going to eventually move to ESPN Plus, which, by the way, if you're interested in that, I'm understanding that they're going to be on Roku devices. I'm not sure how that's going to work for the rest of the devices just yet, but if you're looking into ESPN Plus, which I'm thinking you should hold off, not yet on that. Wait till the content you want is there before you make that decision. Or if you've jumped in, I want to hear a report. Give me an idea of what the ESPN Plus has done to make your life better. That's going to do it for this edition of the show. I want to thank our guests for joining us on the program. We heard from Marshall's assistant track coach, Caleb Bowen, and then a few minutes ago we heard from Greg Adkins, who gave us an update on spring football. For our producer, Gabriel Sellards, I'm Paul Swann. This has been The Drive on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. Back tomorrow to do it all over again. Don't forget, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, TuneIn, and if you're on Apple Podcasts, make sure to leave us a review. Good night, everyone.
WRBC Huntington, W227BS Huntington, ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. Huntington Sports Station.